Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's January 23, 2020, and this is episode 693. Having just completed this year's Hokkaido winter landscape photography tour, today I'm going to start a 3 or perhaps 4-part travelogue series to walk you through our antics as we made our way around the beautiful northernmost island of Japan for 12 days. I'm always a little nervous as we start this tour because the success of at least the first location, BA, depends on us getting some falling snow while we're there. I plan for 3 days in this area, partly to give us a better chance of getting that, but also because there are lots of things to shoot. In the past, we've gotten to the last few hours of daylight on day 3 before it snowed, and that was nerve-wracking. On this visit, it started snowing as we arrived in the area on day 1, which is a huge relief and takes the pressure off for these first few days. But of course, we had to get out and do our photography before that became a given. We started with the trees behind the Takushinkan Gallery as usual. You wouldn't know it from this shot, but without the falling snow, there is a brow of a hill just above the top of the trees behind them, and I love it when that is erased by the snow. Even as the snow stops and the sky lightens, I get completely put off by this scene, and others in the area. The snow minimalizes everything and helps to create the look that I think suits this area so well. Here's another example where the falling snow renders the scene in a beautiful minimalist style. I love how you can barely see the top of the hill against the very slightly darker sky here. I also love to see the faint shadow below the tree and how the patches of grasses punctuate the hillside. This is really what this area is all about to me, and I love sharing these scenes with the guests on this tour. As I've mentioned in the past, I now have a piece of software on my website that includes the EXIF shooting data with the image in the lightbox that is displayed when you click on the image. So if you want to check my settings for any of the shots, just click or tap on them to view the lightbox. And this particular post is at mbp.ac/693, and although you can see the images embedded in the chapters of the audio that I release, that doesn't include the EXIF data, so for that you really do have to go over to the blog. In stark contrast, as we walked along the hills in BA, the late afternoon sun broke through the clouds to the right of this next scene, eliminating the foreground snow, outlining its texture while leaving the sky dark, which I enhanced a little in Capture One Pro to exaggerate the difference between the sky and the snow. I do like this as well and think that I've kept a relatively minimalist feel to the image by not zooming in on the hut and the tree as much as I could have. Leaving them small in the scene helps to keep it simple, and also feels more effective when viewed as a large print, kind of as a reward for walking up close to the print. The following image is another that you've seen from previous years, but I can't resist doing this. Again, it kind of requires you look at the higher resolution version, but if you look closely at the line of trees in this image, you can see that the falling snow has made the trees look like a pencil sketch, which, once again, I find really appealing. I like to aim for a shutter speed of between a 40th and a 20th of a second to get this effect. Something else that often comes up as I work with the group in this location is how I decide where to place the line of trees in the frame. My usual way of thinking about this is, if the subject is physically higher than I am, as in I'm looking up at it, I tend more often than not to place that subject near to the top of the frame. If I place it anywhere else, you lose the feeling of it being higher, and I think that's important. Also, I ask what the better of the possibilities is, a white field of snow or a blank white sky. I personally prefer the snow, but that's mostly in a symbolic sense. As far as the photo is concerned, there really isn't much difference. The next photo from day 2 was a bit of a bonus. There wasn't as much snow in Hokkaido as usual this year, and that has probably left more food on the hills for the crows. So this was the first time I'd seen what I conceitedly call Martin's tree, with a murder of crows perched in it. I left my shutter speed slow as some of the crows took flight to add a little dynamism to the shot, and feel that the blurred crows add a slightly stronger Hitchcock feel to the scene. The texture in the sky for this shot also adds to that feeling, so I'm pretty happy with this. Another thing that I've not really seen at this spot in all of the years I've been travelling there is the shadow of the tree on the snow, as we can see in this next image. This was somewhat difficult to process, as I exposed for the highlights in the sky in the top right corner, leaving the foreground snow very dark. I did most of the work in 3 layers, one to bring out the detail and texture in the sky, a second to lighten that central bank of snow, as that was almost black, and then a third over the foreground snow. That third layer, covering most of the bottom of the frame, has a tone curve on it that snakes back and forth across the centre line to create almost white snow while enhancing the shadows. On our third day in the BA area, we drove around to Mount Asahi to photograph the scenes either side of the ski slope there. On the way, we stopped to photograph the pillows of snow forming on top of the rocks in the river that you can see here. I usually shoot this with a much longer focal length, but I stayed pretty wide at 120mm for this shot, as the individual pillows didn't do much for me this year. They were small and not really well formed, so I decided to portray the larger scene instead. I took my new Rolleiflex TLR camera with me on this trip and shot a total of 6 rolls of 120 format film. And here is the first one that I want to share with you, of the trees at the side of the ski slope. I'd prefer to work on this a little more, as I'm still trying to get better results from the scanner software that people recommended in the comments on my recent post about scanning medium format film. The software is called Silverfast SE, and although I can see the benefits of using it, the image quality that I'm getting just isn't as good as what I get with the native scanner drivers. So I'm trying to get some advice from their support team, and if that doesn't help, I will probably go back and rescan with my original Canon software. The blue Shirahige waterfall behind our hotel was pretty much unchanged, but I thought I'd share a shot to complete the documentation of the trip. This is from the start of day 4, as we walked around from the hotel before starting our drive to the next location. I couldn't resist stopping our bus as we drove out of town though, when we were presented with this morning mist against the pastel dawn sky. I originally converted this final shot for today to black and white, which I liked, but these colours kept calling back out to me from Apple Photos, as I'd loaded both versions so that I could live with them for a while to help me make up my mind. I find myself preferring this, so I've now deleted the black and white version. We'll wrap it up there for today, as that takes us to our 10 photo limit that I try to stick to. If you'd like to join this tour, I have switched to running this twice a year from 2021, so we do have a few places left on each tour. Check out the tour page at mbp.ac/HLPA. And if you listen to this in many years to come, when the 2021 tour is also finished, or booked out, then just go to the Tours and Workshops menu at martinbaileyphotography.com and links to all of the currently available tours should be there. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoy this podcast, please share a link with your friends. Subscribe in iTunes or your favourite podcast program to ensure uninterrupted delivery. If you have a moment to rate the podcast or leave us a review in iTunes, that helps to keep us relevant in the huge number of podcasts out there now. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime you take care and have a great week whatever you're doing. Bye bye.